Hi everybody, I'm Ryan. Today we're going to look at how to sideboard with blue-black control in Pioneer. Now I've already done a deck tech with this blue-black control deck. It's essentially a deck that plays spot removal instead of board wipes and like really powerful planeswalkers. And I honestly think it can keep up with these other really powerful Pioneer decks. So we're going to go over the top 10 most popular decks in Pioneer and how blue-black control sideboards against each one of them. Let's do it. So this is my blue-black control list. Again, I already did deck tech on it. You should check that out on the channel if you're interested. I'm going to move over just one so that we have room for the sideboards. The most popular deck in Pioneer, obviously, is red-black midrange. The first card we're bringing in against red-black midrange is Jace, Vryn's Prodigy. And I know what you're saying, like, red-black midrange has so many removal spells. Why are you bringing in Jace, Vryn's Prodigy? Well, the reason is that they're supposed to side out of their removal spells against us. And if we're able to resolve a Jace, Vryn's Prodigy, especially on turn 2, it allows us to continually get that card selection and then flip into a pretty powerful planeswalker that can take over the game against red-black midrange. And if they kept in their removal, then you got me. We're bringing in Negate. Countering things like Fable of the Mirror Breaker and Reckoner Bankbuster are imperative in this matchup. We are bringing in a Narset. They don't put on a ton of pressure. They kind of have to deal with what we're doing and cast Thought Seizes and like Reckoner Bankbusters and stuff in the early game. So Narset to be able to keep up with their card advantage. And so they can't Bankbuster during their turn and things like that is pretty powerful. We're bringing in a Hullbreaker Horror. Hullbreaker Horror can just take over the game, especially in the post board when they side out of their removal. We're bringing in 2 of the Blue Sun's Twilights. Blue Sun's Twilight's really strong against Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Allows us to just catch up against it. Also, if they're able to like escape a Kroxa in the late game against us, stealing that Kroxa feels real good. I'm a fan of Shieldred's Edict. It's really important that we deal with actual Shieldred. And I'm a fan of Kalitas to be able to deal with their more aggressive hands. Now, the first way to deal with all this stuff is like look at our one-ofs because we're playing a couple main deck sideboard cards. Cling to Dust obviously isn't for this matchup. We side out Cling to Dust. Extinction Event, not for this matchup. We side out Extinction Event. I'm also not a giant fan of Meerkat Masker. They're not going wide. They're just playing very powerful creatures here and there. And generally, if we're looking at more cards to sideboard out, I like sideboarding out with Censors. We sideboard some Censors out because we're sideboarding into just more powerful cards, and that's okay. And then we sideboard out 2 of our Fatal Push. The reason we're sideboarding out 2 of our Fatal Push is the only card it kills is the Fable token, which is pretty powerful when it kills it, Blood Tithe Harvester, and Kroxa, because we can't really effectively turn on the Revolt. And so shaving on that card and just leaning more on Shieldred's Edict, actually countering the spells and drowning the lock, I am totally okay with. And that's why I sideboard against red-black. The second most popular deck in Pioneer is Abzan Greasefang. So Abzan Greasefang is really important that we deal with the combo that is happening. And the combo that is happening does a couple different things, and you can attack it in a few different ways. My favorite way to attack it is with counter magic, removal spells, and actually like removing things from the graveyard. So we are going to side in Cling to Dust, obviously, like this card is essentially for Abzan Greasefang. Thoughtseize is also very good in the matchup, so we're bringing it into Thoughtseize. We can kind of take combo pieces out of their hand, especially things like Greasefang. Shieldred's Edict is very good for after they are able to actually play Greasefang and are about to combo us, we can just have them sacrifice Greasefang, which is super powerful. And these are the cards that are straight up good, but there's some cards that are like kind of just bad against the deck. Meerkat Masker is just bad. I would say Extinction Event is just bad. Unfortunately, Fatal Push is also kind of just bad because we can't turn on Revolt. It's not going to actually deal with Greasefang, which means we need more cards coming in from our sideboard. Negate isn't very bad because we can like counter things like Grizzly Salvage or Can't Stay Away. Hullbreaker Horror is a solid card to be able to just finish very quickly with in the late game. So this is why I like sideboarding against Abzan Greasefang. The third most popular deck is Blue-White Control, our nemesis. We need to sideboard into as much value as possible against Blue-White Control. We are bringing in Jace, Vryn's Prodigy. If it sits long enough, we can have better card selection than our opponent and then flip into an awesome planeswalker. Negate is obviously good against blue-white control. Narset's Reversal, just more counter magic against their instant sorcery cards. Mystical Dispute, a 1-mana counter to their blue cards, is amazing. Narset means they can't draw multiple cards during their turn, so it turns off their Teferi and gives us that card advantage. Hullbreaker Horror is a great uncounterable threat in the late game. Thoughtseize is obviously extremely good because we can take away their threats and then also get rid of like their counter magic so we can resolve our stuff. And Shieldred's Edict is actually very good because we can make them sacrifice their planeswalkers because that's the big advantage they have on us is those planeswalkers. So these are cards that are actively good. So let's see what cards are actively bad. Meerkat Masker, obviously bad. Extinction Event, obviously bad. Fatal Push and Cling to Dust, pretty obviously bad. I'm not a big fan of Censor and Make Disappear because often we're just going to be land going in the super early turns like anyway. Keeping a Censor in though is probably correct because like you can snipe something and being able to cycle is pretty powerful. So that's how we sideboard against blue-white control. The fourth most popular deck in Pioneer is the Nykthos green deck. Against this deck, we are bringing in Negate. Negate is extremely powerful because it gets rid of Storm of the Festival and the Planeswalkers. Thoughtseize is also very powerful, being able to get rid of their powerful payoffs. Kalitas is pretty strong because their 3 mana payoff and their 5 mana payoff both have death effects, and if we have Kalitas out, then they don't actually get those effects. And I'm a fan of Narset because if they get Kiora online and then start playing creatures, and they start drawing cards off of Kiora, that's kind of end of the road for us. So I like Narset against these decks. And Shieldred's Edict in the deep late game and the mid game is not very good, but just having them sacrifice their mana dork, or when they have one Planeswalker, having them sacrifice their Planeswalker ends up being pretty solid. Now, I'm not a fan of Meat Hut Massacre. Meat Hut Massacre has its place in, like, if they have, like, a heavy mana dork hand, being able to wipe the board. That happens so rarely and lines up so rarely that I just like siding out of Meat Hut Massacre. Cling to Dust is obviously bad. It does stop the flashback of Storm the Festival, but I would rather just be playing counter magic that has many more applications than be exiling to Storm the Festival. And Censor and Make Disappear end up not being very good in the matchup, except in the very early parts of the game, because they make a ridiculous amount of mana anyway if we're unable to control them, and often get turned off, and we really need no cards in our deck to be bad at any point. So sideboard against green. The fifth most popular deck is Lotus Field, is the Hidden Strings deck. Against Lotus Field, we're bringing in Jace. They don't have a lot of removal, and being able to get that card selection so we can interrupt them the best we can is super important. Bringing in Negate so that we can interrupt their combo. Bringing in Narset's Reversal so we can interrupt their combo. Mystical Dispute so we can, guess what, interrupt their combo. Narset is extremely powerful against like pour through pages. Thoughtseize is very good because we can literally just remove things that they are doing. These are the cards that are excellent. Let's take out the cards that are just bad. Meat Hut Massacre, just bad. They have no creatures. Extinction Event, just bad. Fatal Push, just a dead card. Shieldred's Edict, just bad. You know, if they hit their creatures off of their combo, like, okay. I would rather just like counter their stuff and stop their combo entirely. So these are the cards that are just bad that need to come out. Cling to Dust, however, does have some sort of application, so we're going to be bringing that in as well. In that, like, if they play Leer, we can remove a card from their graveyard, especially if a card is like super important for them to continue their combo. Also, being able to like draw cards off of Cling to Dust is pretty powerful, and allows us to have a card that has some application versus a bunch of cards that have zero application. This is how I sideboard against Lotus Field. The sixth most popular deck is Temur Creativity. And we're going to be siding into a lot of the similar cards that we did against Lotus Field. We're going to side in Jace, being able to play it on turn 2 and being able to find these cards that are good against their combo feels really good. We're going to be siding in Negate, Narset's Reversal, Mystical Dispute, all for the same reasons. Narset is also very good. It can stop a bunch of their card draw. Thoughtseize is pretty solid in interrupting their combo as well. So these are cards that are actually good. Let's see what cards are actively bad. So we're going to be taking out Meat Hut Massacre. They are not going wide. Extinction Event, they are not going wide. Fatal Push does literally nothing in the matchup. And I'm not a giant fan of Cling to Dust. And we're going to shave one Shieldred's Edict. Keeping 2 of them in is like fine, especially since there's nothing really in the sideboard I want against this deck. So there's an argument for Hullbreaker Horror. So you like, you know, I could see you doing like this. I don't like siding in Hullbreaker Horror though. I like just doing this. Shieldred's Edict is just like kind of a last ditch effort to answer the combo, whether it's Atraxa or the World Spine Worm. Being able to just Shieldred's Edict instead of dying is pretty okay. Very often, I think you're going to be discarding Shieldred's Edict to like Jace or just not selecting it with your card selection spells. This is how I sideboard against Creativity. The 7th most popular deck is Mono White Humans, which is kind of a deck that we're built to beat, right? We're going to be siding in Shieldred's Edict. Removal's good. Going to side in Ritual of Soot. They're going wide. We're going to try to wipe their board. I actually like Blue Sun's Twilight against this deck, because Blue Sun's Twilight allows us to take one of their creatures, especially if they pumped up one of their one or two mana creatures, and then be able to block with it, which is extremely powerful. And then Kalitas as a big-butted lifelink blocker is pretty strong. Going to be bringing out Cling to Dust. It does nothing against the deck. Going to be bringing out Negate. It does nothing against the deck. I guess it counters Wedding Announcement. We have plenty of other cards that do that. Going to be bringing out Narset. We don't really care about them drawing cards, and we don't really have time to tap out for a Narset that doesn't really immediately affect the board. So this is how we sideboard against Mono White Humans. The 8th most popular deck is the Gruul Vehicles deck, another aggressive deck. And we're going to sideboarding very, very similarly. We're going to side in Blue Sun's Twilight for the same reason we sideboarded in against Mono White Humans, being able to steal something and then block with it. Shieldred's Edict because removal, Ritual of Soot because board wipes, they're going wide anyway, and Kalitas because they're going wide anyway. And sideboarding out of a lot of the same cards. Narset isn't very good. Cling to Dust isn't very good. And while Negate can counter the vehicles, I'd rather be countering them in other ways. And Asika's Chariot's the only vehicle that we're actually afraid of, and we get to steal with the creatures or just save our counter spells for it. So this is how I sideboard against Gruul midrange as well. 5-color Bring Delight is the 9th most popular deck. Against the 5-color Bring Delight deck, we're bringing in Jace, a lot of the same stuff as Control. Negate to stop their combo, Narset's Reversal to stop their combo, Mystical Dispute because they're going to be trying to play the counter war with us. Narset is pretty solid, so they don't draw these extra cards, especially off like Omnath and things like that. Hullbreaker Horror is a great way to end the game against them. Blue Sun's Twilight is a great way to keep up if they are able to resolve a Fable of the Mirror Breaker. And Thoughtseize is very solid against them as well, being able to take their Bring Delights and their Omnaths and their payoff cards. Now, Fatal Push does nothing. They don't have anything that costs 2 or less, and again, we have a hard time turning on Revolt with this deck. Meekup Massacre does very, very little. They don't really go wide. Similar reason we are taking out Extinction Event. Cling to Dust does literally nothing as well. And then here's where it gets a little bit difficult. I actually like taking out Drown in the Loch. The reason I like taking out Drown in the Loch is they're very much just like a big stuff deck. If we get to the deep late game, we're probably winning anyway. And in the early and mid game, they rarely have 5 or 6 cards in their graveyard, which is the mana cost of the cards that we care about. So Drown in the Loch rarely kills or counters anything, except for after we've already essentially won. And because it's really easy for a deck that is ramping with Sylvan Caryatid and has so many cards to play around cards, I actually like siding out of Make Disappear and a few of the Censors. That's how I sideboard against Bring Delight. And the 10th most popular deck is Izzet Phoenix. Against Izzet Phoenix, Jace Vryn's Prodigy is pretty good because they kind of have to sideboard out of their removal. Against us, if they don't sideboard out of their removal, then good for them. Negate is good because a huge majority of their deck is instant sorceries. Same thing with Narset's Reversal, same thing with Mystical Dispute with blue cards. Narset is excellent, turning off cards like Chart, of course, and Treasure Cruise and things like that. Kalitas is pretty solid, being able to get a high enough life total where they can't like Phoenix combo us. And if we ever kill a Phoenix that enters the battlefield, it gets exiled, which is awesome. And Cling to Dust is pretty good, being able to exile Phoenixes before they come back and really being able to like control their graveyard at least a little bit, so they have more difficulty treasure cruising. That being said, they don't go wide, so Meekup Massacre isn't very good. I do like Extinction Event though for after they have done the Phoenix thing, being able to just exile the Phoenixes and not worry about them feels really good. Fatal Push comes out because the only thing it kills is Thing and Ice, and I think I side out a Thing and Ice against us anyway, and won't kill Arc-like Phoenix. You know, can't really do that. I like Shaven, a Shieldred's Edict. Being able to control like an Arc-like Phoenix here and there is kind of nice, but I would rather just kind of like counter their stuff and control their graveyard and like cast the Extinction Event and stop them from drawing cards and stuff like that rather than answering the Phoenix after it's already entered the battlefield. And because a lot of their stuff costs 1 or 2 mana, it's really easy to play around Censor, so we're going to shave on Censor. And this is how I sideboard against Phoenix. So there you have how to sideboard with blue-black control in Pioneer. If you like videos like this and want to see more, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social media. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.